Hey, Trisha Taurinskas here, investigative reporter for Forum News Service and host of this podcast, The Vault. This is a bonus episode for our series, The Disappearance of Belinda Van Lith, which wrapped up a few months ago. If you haven't listened to the whole 7-part series, I recommend you do. The context provided throughout the series is necessary in order for this episode to make sense. So, what is this episode all about? I've had a number of people ask me about the rest of the interview with Timothy Crosby. It was, after all, 1 hour long, and while I did include quite a few clips of that discussion, there is still a lot you didn't hear. I recently went back and listened to that interview a few times with a different perspective because I hadn't listened to it for months. And while putting this series together, I listened to it a lot. I've realized that each time I listen, I gain new perspective, new aha moments, and I think you will too. There might be times throughout this interview where you're thinking, why is she being so nice to this guy? You'll find a more thorough answer to that question in episode 6 of this series, but remember, I had already established somewhat of a relationship with Timothy Crosby. We had been writing letters about his civil commitment and why he believed it was unfair. But you can't talk about his civil commitment without mentioning his past convictions. You'll also hear me ask him a number of times if he feels like his civil commitment has anything to do with Belinda's case. This, in part, was because I wanted to open up the conversation about Belinda to see what he would reveal or how he would respond. And to be clear, Belinda's case was not used in the state's argument to civilly commit Timothy Crosby. Before we begin, let's set the scene at the Moose Lake Sex Offender Program facility where I sat down with Timothy Crosby in January of 2024. Imagine the prison visiting rooms you see on TV. Not the booth with the plexiglass and phones on each side, but the ones where visitors and inmates gather around a small circular table. In my scenario, there were no other visitors. The large room was empty, aside from a male security guard and a male representative from the Minnesota Department of Human Services. Those 2 men sat on a raised platform near the front of the room, near the door. It looked like what those in the world of law would call the bench, where the judge sits, presiding over the courtroom. Those 2 men sat on the bench, so to speak, roughly 30 feet from where I maneuvered 2 of those round tables together and set up 2 microphones, one for me and one for Timothy Crosby. What you'll hear as this recording starts is me waiting for Timothy Crosby. He was late, nearly a half hour late, and I was getting nervous that he wouldn't show up. There had been a COVID outbreak at the facility, and, well, there's always a chance someone will change their mind and decline the interview. At the start of this recording, you'll faintly hear a man from the Department of Human Services in the background asking me questions. And because it is hard to hear him, I will tell you right now that he was asking me, essentially, what I was there to do.
So Trisha, your interview with him is really about him. It's not about the program or anybody.
No, it's about him, the nature of his civil commitment, and what led to it. Yeah.
I assumed as much.
Yeah, I have the case file for Belinda Van Lith, who he's, a suspect. Apologies to the family. It was early in the project. It is, in fact, Van Lith. And which included all of his case files, so Wright County just released that.
I figured as much.
Yeah.
Hi.
And you are
I'm Trisha Taurinskas,
Uh,
and you are Timothy Crosby.
yes,
All right. Well, thanks for showing up.
well,
I was kind of nervous.
what? Well, you gave me no advance warning.
Well, didn't you know it was planned?
No,
Oh, you didn't?
no, in fact, we're actually locked down because of supposedly COVID.
Oh, because of COVID. But you don't have COVID.
Well, I don't know. I personally?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had so many shots that if I had it, it would be just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know. I just got done with COVID, so I'm in the clear. So they say.
we'll stay 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Everybody will be happy.
There you go. So I want you to know that I am recording, which you had agreed to on the form. And I'm just going to make sure that everything's good in terms of audio. Would you mind saying something real quick?
Let's see, I have no clue what you want, what you're looking for, what questions you'll ask,
Okay.
or how I answer them, so.
Okay. Well, let's start with what you and I had been writing back and forth about, so the nature of your civil commitment. So if you could tell me, I know that obviously this is something that you have appealed more than once. So if we could just start there, how long have you been in this facility?
I'm just going to say that since 2009, when I got my probation sentence, I've stayed in cells for 15 years now. Never really having my probation sentence. So-
Right, because that was kind of the crux of it from the beginning, was there was some issue with them saying that you didn't follow the terms of your probation, but they weren't clearly set.
How much story do you want to hear? I mean,
Go for it, we have an
I
hour.
was given a probation sentence and never allowed to serve it. Was kept in a county jail. One day a probation agent comes up and pretty much coerces me to sign some form.
Okay.
And when I sign it, within a week, 2 weeks, she's right there to violate me.
Okay, so you signed it, and then right away,
Pretty much, if I remember right.
okay,
And the condition she violated me on was how I didn't enter and complete treatment.
but you were never assigned treatment.
No, I was never assigned it. I was in jail, a cell.
Mm-hmm.
There is no treatment available in a jail. And so it's pretty much a railroading by her and a judge. And so wasn't a whole lot I could do.
Did you feel like you were tricked? Or put into
Well,
a
there was
corner?
something not right. I mean, logic said I couldn't enter and complete anything as I'm sitting in a county jail cell. So I pretty much knew that something could be up when she was coercing me to sign this form.
Mhm.
And one of the conditions was the enter and complete treatment. I even asked her about that. I said, how am I going to do this? Oh, that's for when you get out. I said, oh. Or something like that, she said.
So are you offered, or actually, let me go back to this. What, have your days been the same for the last decade? Or what does a typical day look like? Do you,
I can sit in my cell and we get called out for a meal. That's about our days here.
okay, are you enrolled in any sort of therapy program?
I used to go to groups and modules, what they call those, and I realized that there's just something not right about them. They were being run by people that just didn't know what they were doing and had a folder they'd look at. And you get no credit in any of your reports for having gone to it. So I thought, wow, there's something wrong here. You don't get no credit for what you're doing. You get no credit for your assignments that you might do. And your one-to-one talks with somebody, you get no credit. So I thought, what's the point?
Was that after your appeals?
Oh, I don't remember when I was doing the appealing. I just, I was trying to ask questions, what's going on? And you mentioned 2017, you read something? That would have been right after, pretty much after Judge Franks made a decision that what was going on with MSOP was unconstitutional.
Is that what you sent me? Information related to
I
that?
sent you all kinds of stuff, but I have no way of knowing if you've even gotten what I've sent you.
Okay.
So,
I wasn't able to bring them in, but yeah, I do have
no.
some. So I guess I do have, Wright County Sheriff's Office gave me the entirety of a file related to a missing person. And so in there was information related to your history. And it was really long, over 1,200 pages. And are you familiar with Detective Mike Lindquist?
no, and I'm not sure what report you're talking about.
Okay, so Detective Mike Lindquist is with Wright County. And I'm telling you this because as I read through this report, to me the story was that Mike Lindquist came onto the scene in 2006, I think, working on Belinda Van Lith's case out of Wright County. And that's when he really started looking at you. So search warrants on your home, he was a leading detective who, applied for those search warrants and was granted those search warrants. He went to great lengths to find any sort of evidence that would link you to Belinda. And at the end of all of it, he didn't. But that is ultimately what led you here, is what it looks like. So my question to you is, do you feel like you are in a situation where someone couldn't gather enough evidence on you to charge you, so they worked in another way to essentially lock you up?
I don't believe I'm here for treatment, as evidenced by many other people doing all kinds of work, and they're not going anywhere, completing anything. So it becomes, why am I here? If it's not a treatment facility, then it's a prison, okay? And I once had a county worker who told me, he said, you're not being locked up for what you did in 2009, okay? You're being locked up for your record.
Yeah.
Pretty much what he said. He said, and I also know after talking with my attorney that I had, I can't remember, Southwell it might have been.
I don't know. I don't have my computer
Okay.
on me. I couldn't bring it in. But I do have that.
There was a lot of documentation that had me being proven not guilty of
Because you did appeal that.
accusations.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You did appeal your confession.
I don't know what I did back then.
Yeah.
I was trying to work with my attorneys, doing what they suggested, trusting them, relying on them. And there was a lot of evidence, investigations and documents that he had that proved I wasn't guilty of a lot of things that they were throwing around.
With the 17-year-old,
17-year-old.
that 2009 conviction.
She wasn't 17.
I think, well, that was
And that was confusing, because her and her girlfriend, they were gay. I met one of them through one of my family members and became friends with her, and didn't know the 17-year-old other than She was introduced as 19. She had 2 children, and I didn't really have much contact with her. It was always her older friend.
Do you know how they found out about that?
About what?
Like, what led to that conviction?
I never understood the conviction. I never understood the charge. I tried to challenge some of that stuff because, like I said, I didn't understand this concept that 2 women who approached me with the idea of making out with each other. The 2 women would make out with each other. And I could I don't remember how that worked, but basically the older one said something like, well, why give Lamplighter money when you could give us some money and we'll put on this little making out scene thing. And I didn't feel good about it. In fact, during the time they were doing this little making out stuff, I was on the phone with my wife a lot, wanting to know how she was, how are the kids doing.
How many kids do you have?
3. So I was more interested in what's going on there, and plus I believed that what they were doing with each other was a personal thing, and my place wasn't to be there, okay? And yet I'm a guy, and I was seeing stuff I had never seen really before, and it's like, so
Sure.
I don't know if
you
I've
weren't-
answered your questions at all.
Oh, no, I was just, in reading through the different police files and then kind of piecing it together. So there was a search warrant, which I'm sure you remember, prior to this, executed at your home.
There was more than one.
Okay, the first one, though. The second one did relate to the 17-year-old, but the first one was...
I was in jail a lot of time.
Yeah.
I was yanked away and taken to jail, and there I sat as stuff was going on at home that I was not told, really. In fact, I was whisked out the back door, I think, and I had no clue really what was going on.
So that 2009, you don't remember
I wasn't told
being
it.
there? Okay.
Other than my wife telling me that my blind dog was kicked down the basement steps, and
But your wife was there. There were...
she was going through a lot of emotional, like what's going on, and,
Yeah, that was probably scary.
and
for her.
so she was having like emotional difficulties, and she needed support people around her, and I wasn't there. I was sitting in some jail cell being processed, and our children were young at the time, and it was all not needed, in my opinion. It just was not needed, what was going on. And one of the reasons that they made a big deal about a lock on a basement door, and I thought, the key is above the doorway. And one reason is so the dog wouldn't get down the steps, because it was blind. And so, I had young children at the time. I didn't know how to childproof the house. I had no clue how to do that. So there was like little locks on cupboards, and closets and just trying to keep stuff child-proofed away. And my grandmother, my wife's mom, lived there, and she had medicines that she took. So we were trying to keep her medicines away from the kids. And I'm drifting off, I suppose. But back then it was very confusing, and I wasn't really told anything much.
Well, so in 2009, the first search warrant, it was Detective Mike Lindquist, and I believe some officers out of the St. Paul Police Department, and they executed a search warrant for 2 cases. I think Victoria was the first one, and Belinda Van Lith. And so after that, the Star Tribune, correction, St. Paul Pioneer Press, I have to give credit where credit is due, wrote a story that said 2 cases, 1 suspect, and it was about you and the search warrant that they executed. And then according to the investigative file that Wright County handed over, the mother of the 17-year-old girl saw that in the paper and recognized that her daughter had spent some time with you. And then that's how the ball got rolling to call in, and that's kind of how that case started against you. So I guess that's what I mean when I say following along, Wright County, looking into you for the Belinda case, that getting in the newspaper, maybe a good court reporter looking up, in the county, looking at what, search warrants are being executed. But anyway, that ends up in the paper, and that's how that mom came forward. So I guess it is all somewhat linked, and then obviously you were arrested for that. Did you get 2 years and convicted? 2 years in prison?
A probation sentence.
Okay, so they did.
That's what I was given, was a probation sentence.
Okay.
And because
Yeah.
and then I wasn't allowed to serve it. I just pretty much stayed in a cell. Pretty much what I wrote at some point in time.
Yeah. So the state
Double-crossed, county and
argument.
state got double-crossed me and
Yeah.
gave me a probation sentence they never meant to serve, earn or serve.
Right. So then in your appeals, you mentioned the 1987 plea. So in
My lawyer did.
Okay.
See, I didn't know what my lawyer was doing most of the time either, because I didn't always get copies of stuff he was to give me.
Okay.
So I didn't really know what he was doing. I don't know what he was saying. I didn't know what investigative information he was finding, because I wasn't given it. It wasn't until he not recently, 2-3 years ago maybe, that he retired in Southwell, that I ended up with a different lawyer, Bigelow, and Southwell cleaned out his files and gave me reports and stuff. And most of them were just duplicates of each other and worthless, but some was write out information that said there was no evidence of this accusation or that accusation or that. There is no evidence of those that proves those allegations. In fact,
Are we talking about 2009?
just in general, 2009, there's even some strong. That's why they didn't want it to go to trial, I think, is because they knew that what was going on was really not what I was being charged with.
So back to the 3 convictions essentially that were prior to the 2009. I mean, decade prior. 74, 1983, 1987. So, in putting all this together, the state got you on this in 2009 and thought, and maybe this isn't fact, but this is maybe just a read on it, got you in 2009 for the engaging in a sexual act with a 17-year-old. Paired that with items found during the execution of the search warrant related to Belinda and Victoria, and used all of that to argue their case. So your lawyer, or whoever, in 1987, there was something in your plea agreement, so that had to do with the woman, I believe, in St. Paul?
I don't remember. That's really a lot of that stuff. It's all intermingled, all messed up. As far as the 09 17-year-old Cece, I believe, sexual contact, no.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, that's probably part of the problem they had, is that it was her and her girlfriend that were involved physically. I wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your lawyers did, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Your lawyers did argue that that didn't constitute the type of behavior. It wasn't equal to the type of behavior that you had been convicted of in the past. So it sounds to me that that is what you are essentially saying. Like, look, this didn't necessarily meet the criteria of the type of crimes that you had been convicted of in the past. So it didn't necessarily show a pattern, or it wasn't like the last piece of the puzzle to the pattern.
It was still stupid. I'm a married man. I shouldn't have let two people, even though they said they were my friends, and I shouldn't have done that. You know, that was a personal thing they were doing with each other.
Sure. How much, you know, I guess my question and curiosity in this is, you know, you've been here for over a decade.
15 years, roughly now.
So that's a long time.
Since 09.
It's a long time to spend every day in one location. So it's not anything I can imagine. But when you've thought about this in your head, I know you've mentioned that the history is a little bit tangled, but have you ever thought to yourself that this had any connection to the missing person case of Belinda Van Lith?
No, because I pretty much was under the belief that, by what I was reading in the reports that I was sent because the lawyer retired.
Oh, from your lawyer,
because I really got no access to reports and information and what was going on, so I was always in the blind. But I was under the belief that things were proven what's the word? I was innocent to the accusations. I was innocent to it. The accusational kinds of crap. And I was never told. Ha ha ha.
Gotcha.
And stuff that I was reading from my attorney's closed files proved that I wasn't, you know.
Are we talking
But it's not going to change the years that I've lost of my life sitting in a facility system that's really not treatment at all.
Right. So I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. Were you talking about just now, were you talking about the 2009 or Belinda in the 70s?
I'm believing that information is not told to me.
Okay.
Especially if it was in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not told it because then I could challenge it. And even though I asked my attorney to challenge stuff, he said, well, it's just accusations. It don't matter.
Right. But you knew, though, that you were a suspect in Belinda's case.
As a
Probably
neighbor,
from the 70s.
just as a neighbor, as far as I know, but and I've tried to help out when, what was it, 3-5 years ago, I think some officers came
Here, right.
here.
Yeah.
And I tried, I think I spent over an hour, if not more, with them trying to recollect.
One of them was Mike Lindquist.
Oh, see, I don't know
Yeah.
that. I tried to, I think, tell them the neighbors that I think were around at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that may not even be accurate anymore either.
No, I read, that was
Okay.
in the police file that I had received.
Um,
So they were asking you,
who was around, I think. And I
yeah,
don't even remember the name of some of the neighbors anymore.
sure, it's a long time ago.
And so that's what I'm left believing is that if the accusations were proven in my favor,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I would never have heard it
Yeah,
because that's how that's how things are, you know.
yeah,
It's like many of my reports have data errors big time, and to put my head against the wall trying to fix the data errors is stupid.
Yeah.
It would be stupid to try to do, and
right,
that's pretty much what I think Mr. Southwell tried to tell me is, Tim, you got screwed, and you're going to have to find a way to live with that,
mm-hmm.
is I believe something he told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not unique. There are a lot of people in here with similar situations of trying to challenge paperwork, trying to challenge accusations, and
Right, because it's different
it's
than a
futile.
conviction.
It's futile.
It's different than a conviction,
No.
it's.
Did I do
argument.
stupid things when I was younger? Yeah. Did I understand why I was doing them? No.
You didn't?
No. No. Did I get better? Oh, yeah.
You think so?
And how did I get better? I could have been growing older. It could have been just, you know.
Yeah, because
Uh,
you were 19 when your first adult conviction was when you were 19.
If you say.
Yeah, so
I
that
don't
was,
remember.
so the 19-year-old was the woman who she was hitchhiking in St. Paul, so the first one, and you took her up to your cabin on Wright Lake.
Correction, it was Eagle Lake.
And that was 6 months after Belinda went missing. And that really was the start of them looking into you. They didn't look into you before that. You were a neighbor. Lived 100 yards, or you were at the cabin alone 100 yards away, but there were a lot of people at cabins. There's a lot of cabins up there.
And I was usually with family.
Mm-hmm. But that weekend you weren't.
Was there neighbors at that time?
Yeah, there were some couples. I don't
Okay.
recall their names, but
Yeah.
I think they had a daughter named Mary Kay.
I remember some of that weekend I was actually not even at the lake. I was actually in town.
Because you got caught, or you were like drinking, got stuck in a field.
It's all intermingled. I don't know. You know, but
Do you remember the Van Lith girls? Because your sister's Sue, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And is she okay? Is she's going through?
No, she's not okay.
Okay.
A lot of medical issues.
Yeah. So Pam, who was the oldest Van Lith girl,
I really never.
you didn't know them very well?
No.
Okay.
No. And
Because you were seasonal and they were year-round.
I suppose I really didn't go there unless I was with family.
Okay.
You know, my dad spent a lot of time up there, and can't remember. Was my sister down there that weekend too?
No,
No,
it was just you.
I don't remember.
Because Belinda had gone, and this is what put you in the spotlight.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but Belinda had gone to your cabin. So you had told law enforcement, the sheriff's office there in Wright County, that you spoke to her on the day before she went missing. So you were the last person to speak with her in person. She spoke on the phone to someone else, but...
I'm not really sure that's 100% true.
Well, that's
I'm
just
pretty
according
sure-
to what you had told them 6 months after, and even right after, so before you were even ever a suspect.
Well, I'd swear somebody had said something about a party, and that's why somebody was looking for Susan. Was she going to
Oh,
come
yeah.
up there? And I said, yeah, I think Susan's coming up this weekend. There was going to be a party there.
Yeah, Pam's party. So that
So-
would have been Sue's friend. She was going into the Navy.
Correction, it wasn't the Navy, it was the Air Force.
So I believe other people, what's the word, were around, or were going to be around, or
Oh, yeah,
something.
because she didn't show up to the party.
See, and I don't know any of
Yeah.
that. See, I wasn't told a lot of things. I just know that when my attorney investigated stuff, I was ruled out of things.
Well, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a contrarian. It's just having read the 1,200 pages, they never ruled you out. In fact, at the very end, Mike Lindquist said there's one suspect, and it was you. And he spent a lot of time trying to prove that.
So am I safe to assume that's why you're here?
Yeah.
And so all the stuff that I've been sending you is ridiculous?
No, maybe you being locked up is some form of justice for Belinda's family. And I'm wondering if you've ever thought that, if you've ever felt that.
No. In theory, we're supposedly locked up here for treatment.
Well, right.
But if that's not actually the case, which it does appear that way, since nothing here is really accredited, this means that it's just a lockup here, which explains why we're being punished every day. Ha.
Well, and I think it's not necessarily, I guess the way that I would look at it is two separate things. Like, here's your case, and here's Mike Lindquist. This is horrible drawing and stuff, but he's, spending all these years doing all these things, trying to connect you to Belinda's case, searching.
Right. Spending so much time focusing on me that he's not looking at everything. Everything.
Was there more?
Of course, if it's not me, which it's not me, because my lawyer even proved that in his own investigating, there's other things going on.
Yeah, so he did look into Dwayne Cornwell too, but Dwayne's dead. That was the house. Did you know Dwayne?
No,
Okay.
no, I just heard that there was a, no, I don't remember. What did I ever hear? I never heard the word Dwayne. I just heard that they were looking into this guy who owned the place, and he was a real nutcase.
Yeah, he was.
And so, gee, now that he's dead,
Yeah, when he was alive,
move
they
it all
looked
to
into
me,
him.
right?
They looked into Dwayne, and then they looked into the Meintzma brothers, Rodney and Ronald.
Again, I don't know.
Yeah, and they were locals. So, those were the three avenues that they looked at. But what happened was, basically, if you look at, the intensity or timeline of how they looked at everyone, this would be the Meintzma brothers, this is Dwayne, and this is you. So, and really from, 1975 until 2009, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot done. It was when Mike Lindquist picked up the case and then was working with the BCA. But all of this led to, here's a search warrant. Here's the press about it. And then that leads to Cece, or whatever you said her name was, mom calling in, and then there's your conviction for the 17-year-old, which then leads to the court arguing that, in addition to your 3 convictions in 74, 83, and 87, altogether was their argument that you are to be civilly committed.
Pretty lame
and you
argument.
know why.
Pretty lame argument. Totally ignoring that I was married, had 3 children, and there were no instances of domestic abuse or any kind of abuse to my wife, to my family, to my friends, to my... Gee. So we'll just civil commit based on Mike was his name?
Well, it's not necessarily him, because he can't, like, civilly commit you, but you know what I'm saying, right? All of this kind of led to that. But then, in the middle there, though, there was not just a 17-year-old, but when they executed the search warrants, they found written material. I mean, you know that, like the written material that had to do with similar activity to the crimes you had committed. So having to do with, abduction, kidnapping, sexual assault, all the things that basically were kind of included in these 3 convictions. So that played into it too. And in the court documents, according to the court documents, all of that played into it too. And then there was, in 2000, when you were working at University of Minnesota.
To clarify here, he was employed at the University of Minnesota as a custodian when he was fired in 2000 because he printed more than 50 pages of material related to torture, rape, incest, dominance, and violent pornographic stories. Law enforcement was not involved in that incident.
And you got fired and wasn't against the law. There were no charges related to that. But all that kind of got dug up to paint this picture to the court. My question is, there's these 3, but then there's the big question mark here for Wright County anyway. Because the first conviction, technically the crime took place in part in Wright County because you're at your cabin. But my question is, if you take this away, the Belinda case, and if you take 75 away, which was pretty detrimental to you in a lot of ways because it was linked you to Belinda. But if you take these away, then there's no case. But it was this whole picture. Now, I've talked to Belinda's siblings, because the big question I had for them is having you not locked up, but civilly committed, is that justice for them? And they said no.
Because
they
aren't sure.
They're not sure.
Gee,
that
good for them.
That you killed Belinda or whatever with Belinda. They'd remember you. Pam remembers you because Sue, I guess, was her good friend, and she kept in contact with Sue. She had mentioned she had health issues and stuff.
She does. And I'd like to be there for my sister. She needs help.
But ultimately, they don't rule you out, but they've seen a lot of coincidences linking. I mean, there are a lot of coincidences, if you would call it that. There's a lot linking you to Belinda.
Like what?
Well, I mean...
Yeah, you make a statement like that, but there isn't.
You're right, there's no physical evidence. But if you're just a person looking at it, like you're alone in the cabin, 100 yards from where she is, you're the last person to see her, your car gets stuck in the mud.
I don't think I was the last one. It's convenient to say something like that, but it's not true, is it?
Well, I think it is, because that was right after she went missing, they talked to you. And you didn't say to them, like, hi, I was the last person to see her.
But you were like, oh yeah, she stopped over here yesterday or 2 days ago and she was looking for Sue. So you might not even have known that when you told them that. But it's documented now that you are the last person
I was trying to be helpful.
to have seen her. So,
I mean, did I really know much more than that? No.
and then I think, so then 6 months later, then when you return to the same cabin and commit that type of crime, I mean, obviously they're going to go, oh, wait, we're going to look at this guy.
You make a lot of accusational statements. I don't know if you're trying to hook me into getting upset or responsive, but you are making accusational statements, and I think that's not responsible, to do that.
Accusational, like the last person to see her? Or what do you mean, like other
Just in
ones?
general, you've made accusational statements, and I'm not the most smartest or slickest person, but I just don't think that's right to do. Unless
Well-
you're trying to create your own little story report and stir something up for old Mike there.
I'm not trying to make accusational statements, so I apologize if that's what it seems. I'm just, if you're looking at it, if you're zooming out, those are, I mean, each one of those is a fact.
There's a lot of facts that the system seems to be ignoring, and they rewrite them the way they want. That's not cool.
Right.
Mr. Southwell, through reports and stuff, found a lot of information that was never put into my files as fact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wrong.
Right. And I've not seen any of those.
Well, that's what I mean. The reports are created the way that they're wanted to be, and not true. I mean, and there's nothing I can do about
Do you think, though, if you
facts.
take away, I mean,
These
obviously,
people's facts versus reality facts.
right, but these 3 convictions, I mean, those are, we don't have to argue the facts that led to them, but, I mean, do you think that those were pretty critical and detrimental in the court's ultimate finding, the civil commitment? How much do you think those played into it versus the 17-year-old in 2009?
From what I've read of those 3 things, there's data errors in the reports. Just the ones that I've read. That's an error, that's an error, that's an error.
You mean like in like the...
And there's just nothing I can do to fix the errors, but the accusational assumptions.
So when you say like data errors, do you mean like the testimony, like from the victims, or what? I guess I'm just trying to understand what you're disputing.
I just know that there was a time I read some of those. I don't think I have any of those much now, but there was errors in things, and there wasn't a thing I could do but tell my attorney at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And but the errors still remained in the paperwork. And
Yeah, because at one point you said, and your dad too, your dad spoke with the Wright County Sheriff for the first incident when you were of legal age, when you were 19, and your dad said that was a misunderstanding. You later admitted to it, but you said it was exaggerated. So I think in all of these cases, you felt like there was some sort of exaggeration or inaccurate statements provided by the victims.
I don't know where the information came from, whether it was from, I don't know, but way back then I did stupid things back then, I guess, and went through some treatment and growing up, and you know.
So basically, right, because from like 1987 to 2000, there's really nothing there. I mean, that on your criminal record anyway, you know. So it sounds like the 70s and the 80s were a really tough time for you.
I don't remember the 80s much. I guess my concern a little bit is, what is your agenda? If you're not here to help the guys that are in here falsely, or if your agenda is not to challenge civil commitment and how it's being misused as a secondary prison system, is your agenda just to help old Mike out in his assumptions?
Mike's not talking to me, so I can't even ask Mike these things.
I mean, there's so many people in here that have worked hard to get back to their lives as best they can, and they're told basically, well, there ain't anything you can do as far as treatment. It would never be good enough, basically, is what they're told.
Yeah, because, I mean, do you think you'll ever get out?
To be clear, the road out of the Moose Lake facility is possible, but it requires the offender to attend treatment programs and therapy sessions, all of which are voluntary. And contrary to Timothy Crosby's claims in this interview, they are accredited programs. If an offender is seen progressing in treatment, they are considered a candidate for the St. Peter facility in St. Peter, Minnesota. Reintegration into society is the focus at St. Peter. An offender who is still considered dangerous or lacks accountability for their actions is not a candidate for reintegration and release.
My opinion is simply there's a lot of people here with energy and drive, and they're doing all these assignments, and they're talking to all these supposed therapists, and they're not going anywhere.
Is that why you're...
So I'm thinking I'm in my about 69 now, and it's like, obviously I've done... If the county and the state is willing to railroad me and be dishonest the way they've done over the last, say, 15 years, then this facility is par for course, just to keep me locked up. And if my being kept locked up is somehow to make Mike and some others happy, well, I'm not going to be able to challenge that or stop that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if someone believes that you killed Belinda Van Lith, then they believe you are a dangerous person. I think that's kind of a thought process. And so I guess my question to you is do you consider yourself a dangerous person now? Who's likely to reconvict?
And I wasn't then.
Reoffend?
No. I'm not dangerous now, and I wasn't in 2009. In the 90s.
Okay,
80s.
but
No.
You weren't dangerous in the 70s and 80s? I mean, you had mentioned you didn't really know what was going on, there were issues, and then you did get treatment.
Well, I think you said it yourself when you said I was 19, 18, young back then. And there was a lot of things in life that I had no clue about. And as I grew up, I experienced life for the first time in a lot of ways. And I don't know how else to explain that. I mean, I'm trying not to go down rabbit holes of stupidity. I mean, there's a lot of guys in this facility that have, they're really smart, you know, and they've helped me, I think, understand reality and life. And I'm actually a citizen again, and I have my voting rights, and we've talked about elections and voting and which politician to vote for, and I've really never thought much about that. I've never thought much about the police state and how, I mean, I'm getting old. I have heart problems. I could have a stroke or a heart attack or a blood clot or anything.
So I guess what I'm hearing
Don't worry about
then
some
is that,
stuff anymore.
I guess what I'm hearing then is that you're not the same person that you were back in the 70s and 80s, which is when you were getting into trouble.
As I understand your question, I don't think I was the same person
That you were when you were
even
19,
even in the
20s?
90s or 80. I guess I've I don't know what the word is, matured, grown more. The idea of me meeting a nice person, my wife, having a family, and taking care of her, and doing my jobs, and taking care of my home and the bills, and helping out family as I could, and friends. I saw Kelly, that was the older woman's name, and then Cece was the younger woman. Okay. I saw those two people as my friends, and when we'd get together and talk, they even called me their friend. And so I
know
tried helping them.
I know they mentioned to investigators that you had said things like, "I'm not the same person I was before." Like I can control myself now. Which is kind of in line, I guess, with what you've been saying.
I wasn't saying anything like that as a threat, as far as I know. It was just that these two people were my friends.
Yeah.
And when they needed some help, I tried to help them. I didn't have any strings attached. Cece's child needed clothes and food, and so I tried to help, and I tried to help my family and my neighbors.
So
I don't know.
it sounds to me like you're saying what happened in 2009, which was ultimately kind of like the last nail in the coffin, was not, you feel it was not what they painted it out to be.
Who's they?
The state. But
I didn't see it that way, that I was
Sure.
somehow. I mean,
But
it was wrong, I think,
right.
as far as I'll say that.
But obviously, a huge part of them putting you in here were the 3 crimes in the 70s and 80s that you were caught, those 3 women who escaped.
County worker.
So I think I think a lot of people too would look at that and say, okay, you were convicted 3 times because 3 women escaped. So do you think it's reasonable for them to assume there were more?
I don't know how to answer that. I really trying to think about how they would have thought, but no. I think each situation is unique, and by them assuming something, I had said that Cece was 19, because that's what I believed. I believed her when she said these were my 2 children.
Right.
I believed it when she said that, she has a relationship with her girlfriend and she's gay. And I believed it when they said they were my friends. Now,
Right.
that's all different, and that's real. But again, that's not how it was written up.
Well,
So-
it seems like that's very different than what was going on. This is just me looking at things and reading things than what you're telling me. That seems very different than what happened in the 70s and 80s, which was violent in nature. So you're saying what happened with Cece wasn't violent. It was dumb, but there was no violence
No
involved.
violence.
But back in the 70s and 80s, there was violence involved. And so what I think you're telling me is that in this time period, though, you changed. I mean, they did still find items in your home that related to violence.
I don't really know what they found in the home, and not everything they found in the home was even mine.
Oh, so you never saw those documents? Yeah,
Like
so
I
they
tried
did.
to tell you, there was a lot of stuff that
Yeah.
they never told me about,
Yeah,
but there were a lot of people that lived in the home, a lot of people that had access to the computer.
mm-hmm.
I'm a pack rat.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they've identified me, as a person who just collects stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at some jobs that had, they were throwing stuff out at times, and I scavenged it, I guess you could say, and whether it was books or magazines or just in general. And
But you would have known at that time? Like, you would have known, I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand. Were you of the mentality at that time that if you were to possess items related to how to hide a body, how-tos, in relation to kidnapping, abduction, sexual assault, bondage, all of those things that they documented to have found in 2009 during the search warrant, you would have known at that time that them discovering that might get you in hot water? Or did you not? Or were you thinking none of this is against the law?
I wasn't thinking that acquiring stuff was wrong or that it meant anything. Much like my friendship with Kelly and Sarah, I didn't see anything, wrong, except that they were women and I'm married, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was wrong based on that. It's like, was it wrong for me to go with my wife to Lamplighter once in a while?
Mhm.
Well, she wanted to.
So you wouldn't
Okay.
have thought to yourself like, oh crap, I never would, I hope a cop doesn't see this. I'd be in trouble based on my past. No.
I didn't think about stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't think I did, no, because,
Okay.
no,
Mhm.
I wasn't
Okay.
worried about stuff like that, or looking over my shoulder, or
Sure.
thinking that I was doing anything that was illegal.
Okay. And I think I think we only have a couple minutes left, so I do, reading that police file,
Which file now?
Belinda's file,
Oh.
which included so all 3 of these incidences, Belinda's file included all 3 of those police reports. So everything related to those cases was in that file. And I guess that's important to me in reading it, because you are listed as the only suspect in Belinda's case, but they just closed it. And
Disclosed
they
or
just
closed?
closed it, just closed the case.
What does that mean?
So the case is closed, they're done investigating.
And I'm still assumed to be involved.
You're the main suspect, according to
And
them.
you don't see anything wrong with that? That they would not find out what really happened?
I don't think they can, because it happened in 1974 and they never really at the beginning did a thorough job in investigating it.
So old Dwayne or Dwight?
Dwayne was, Cornwell was the musician in the house Belinda was
So he's
house-sitting at.
gone.
He's gone.
And maybe some of his musician buddies were never looked at? Or any of,
I mean,
how,
sure, I see what you're saying.
I'm saying, come on.
Do you think, yeah, so I think we can acknowledge, though, that there were a lot of coincidences.
They shouldn't close it. If they don't know, they shouldn't close it. They should keep looking for who?
I don't know, I think it's too late. So the family, the Van Lith, there were 8 kids in that family. The Van Liths, Pam being the oldest, she remembers you. They all remember you. And they knew Sue, or Pam did really well. They're not convinced that you did it, but they don't rule you out either.
Doesn't matter. I'm still going to end up still being locked up in here on whatever assumptions or past record. And it's got nothing to do with treatment, so they might as well just quit the facade.
But did you kill Belinda? Did you kidnap her or have anything to do with her going missing?
No. There ain't nothing I can do about anything. Can't change
Can't change
unless
what?
you guys find something after the fact. Somebody comes up and says, "Oh yeah, I was." You know what I'm trying to say? Unless somebody comes up, of course, Dwayne or Dwight can't. But did anyone even look at it? Maybe there was a family thing going on. Some of the family members might have been mad at her.
Yeah, I think
Her own dad, maybe.
they did a pretty good, in my opinion, investigation later on. But at the beginning, it's critical.
No,
Like
I don't know.
Yeah, it was critical in those first days, weeks, and even the year after she went missing, where they just unfortunately didn't investigate the way they do now in the 70s. So I wanted to talk to you because you are listed as the main suspect. And so following along in this story, I was really curious if you felt like you were here, had anything to do with that case at all.
No. According to my lawyer, stuff that he had given me, the accusations of all were proven. I wasn't involved. And I said, okay, so why am I still civil committed? Oh yeah, it's not treatment, so why?
Yeah, because you haven't, they closed the case, but you're still listed as the number one suspect, so
It's too bad.
that is forever.
That's too bad. So if she's like one day found in, I don't know how old she'd even be now. So she's walking
What,
around
your age?
and she's discovered by, oh, hi, aren't you so-and-so?
Well,
Is
that
all
would
the
be
years that
reported.
I've been committed going to change? The family broke up or destroyed of mine? Is there anything going to be repaired? No.
And
No.
just to be clear,
No.
I don't think that's, obviously there are these other convictions, so I'm just saying it's not like it's only Belinda, but you understand what I mean. And looking at the entire story,
Is she
I
gonna
just
be-
wondered if you ever felt that way.
No.
Okay.
I hope she gets brought up on charges when she's found.
You think she's alive? That'd be tough. That'd be real tough.
To bring her up on charges for
No,
the harm she's
for her to
done?
be alive. I don't think she's alive.
See stuff on TV all the time?
You do, but I don't think she's alive.
Well, I sure know this place ain't for treatment. So you've given me a picture of, I don't know what you've given me a picture of. I know a lot of people have contacted you trying to explain things about this place. I assume you've gotten some of the mail I've sent, maybe not all.
I've just gotten mail from you. I haven't gotten mail from anyone else.
And sounds like you support that this place is a lockup facility.
I don't think I know enough to make that statement. What I'm wondering is really how you felt, if you felt that Belinda's case had anything to do with you being in here. Like they couldn't convict you, they couldn't find the evidence, so they just played a part in the state's argument. Not a whole part, but a part.
No. I had pretty much been told that I was
Because you didn't think that you were a suspect, or you never knew that, or...
pretty much what I read was I was that stuff was not some of the accusations of various accusations were resolved. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
And so I didn't put it all together that my sitting here in this lockup facility being punished daily with very little of anything had anything to do with at some level we have to believe what we're told. And if we're being told we're here for treatment, but in reality we're not really here for treatment, we're here to be punished, and so what you're telling me is that's what's going on.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, my question is, do Wright County investigators feel like, you know what, they believe you did it, they do. But they also know the evidence was gone. They couldn't convict you. So do they rest a little easier at night thinking that you're here and can't hurt anyone else? I think the answer to that is yes.
Well, then that's stupid, because that means they're not looking to find out the truth. They're just dumping it all on me, which is wrong.
Okay.
Makes it easy for them, don't it?
So you had nothing to do with Belinda?
Do I know where she is or what she's doing with her life right now? No.
Okay.
Hell, I don't even know how my own family's doing right now and what they're doing.
Okay.
Just in a hole here.
Okay.
That's what I do.
Okay.
We just got locked away, thrown away, and I don't know what's happening with my family, the struggles they're having.
Do you get to see your wife?
She can't drive.
Yeah.
It costs a lot of money to come all the way up this way.
Yeah.
Just the harm that's being done to my family. You know, it's just wrong. So if Mike and his buddies want to see me as a culprit, it makes it easy for them not to have to do any work, and they can retire, which is wrong, because I guess I'll never be absolved.
Well, thank you for speaking with me.
And
I think our time's up.
yeah, I guess I was hoping you were here for another reason, but I guess you're not.
Sorry to disappoint.
Well, I was hoping you cared about what was going on. This guy works with you?
Huh?
This guy works with you?
No.
Probably another cop. Right? Can I ask who you are?
I work for the Department of Human Services.
You've been listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime in the Upper Midwest. This series is dedicated to the disappearance of Belinda Van Lith and the investigation that followed. To see documents from the case file and images of Belinda, Timothy Crosby, and others in this series, visit inforum.com/Belinda.
This series is written, narrated, and produced by me, Trisha Taurinskas. If you have any information related to this case, please reach out. You can find my email in the show notes. Thank you for listening.